Okay, let's unpack this. We're heading straight to the front lines today,
Mm-hmm.
to the communities where, I mean, life is just fundamentally constrained by poverty and social exclusion.
Yeah,
Our mission is to really understand the quiet, persistent work being done there, often by people we tend to overlook.
that's right.
We're talking about youth work, but not as some kind of recreational thing. We're talking about it as essential social infrastructure, the stuff that holds society together.
Exactly. And we're really focused on the youth workers who are deeply embedded, in the communities most affected.
Right.
So think about the person walking the estate on a Friday night
Uh-huh.
or the one who's keeping a warm drop-in space open.
Providing more than just coffee.
So much more.
Yeah.
We're talking food, reliable Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at the reality of, say, a parent who's juggling 2 or 3 low-wage shifts
Mm-hmm.
and the critical difference a trusted long-term youth worker can make in that daily struggle.
And here's the core puzzle we really need to solve today. How does a simple conversation, over a game of pool in a youth center, how does that become an act of pedagogy? An act of learning, of teaching, of developing critical thought, and not just a way to pass the time?
To get that, we first have to ground ourselves in the reality of the challenge.
Okay.
Our sources make it so clear that poverty in this context is,
Yeah.
it's much more than just not having money. It's about a profound material deprivation,
Which means?
which translates into constant, difficult trade-offs, constrained choices for young people and for their families.
And that lack of material resource gets compounded by social exclusion.
Sure.
So being pushed to the very edges of economic, social, political life, not being heard, not being seen,
Fundamentally not being able to participate.
shaping your own future.
And the solution we're exploring, youth work, is kind of designed specifically to counter this. It's defined as rights-based, relationship-centered, and voluntary.
The voluntary is key.
It's the key. Young people actively choose to be there.
So our deep dive mission, then, is about pulling back the curtain on the specific methods, what the sources are calling the everyday pedagogies, the ones that allow this relationship work to actually address the harm of poverty and, unlock the potential for change.
So let's unpack that landscape of lived reality first, because the context, it dictates everything.
Absolutely. We're in a time of rising child and youth poverty, and the impacts are just devastating, cumulative, on health, on learning.
On future opportunities.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating, but also intensely challenging, is how this disadvantage is layered.
It's never just one thing, is it?
Never. It intersects with race, disability, migration status, gender, class. It all piles up.
And that creates what researchers call a complex layered disadvantage.
Right. And we need to see how that actually plays out. It's not a statistic.
No.
It's the shame of a young person skipping a trip because they can't afford the bus fare. Or the family struggling with digital poverty because their phone data, that's their only internet.
So when a youth worker sees a young person, someone who's been coming all the time, suddenly drop out, the issue isn't usually, boredom.
No, almost never, as our sources really emphasize that withdrawal is often rooted in embarrassment.
Embarrassment.
Yeah, not having the right clothes, not being able to chip in for a pizza, or just not having the mental energy left after dealing with everything at home. That is exclusion as much as it is poverty.
And this is exactly where that idea of informal education becomes so critical. We're not talking about classrooms. This is learning that happens organically in everyday spaces.
The streets, youth clubs, online forums, community centers. It's learning that flows through conversation, through doing things together and reflecting on it.
Which leads us to the conceptual heart of this, what's called border pedagogy.
It's a great term.
It really is. It speaks to its position, right?
Yeah.
It's not in school. It's not just family life. It operates on the borders, helping kids bridge these different worlds they live in.
And border pedagogy is all about the educator intentionally meeting young people exactly where they are.
In that in-between space.
Yes, in that liminal boundary space.
Yeah.
Instead of demanding they come to you on your terms.
That's a huge sign of respect for their reality.
It is. And that meeting point, that's the fertile ground. That's where we see the first of YouthWork's major contributions, which is relational safety and dignified support.
Okay, let's dive into those 4 contributions, starting with that one, relational safety. Why is a safe, voluntary space so revolutionary for a young person in poverty?
Well, when you're living in what feels like a perpetual crisis, when housing, food, money, it's all uncertain. You live under constant stress and scrutiny.
Right.
YouthWork offers a space where you can talk about all of that, the stress, the stigma, without feeling assessed, without being blamed or judged.
There's no pass or fail.
No, there's no grade for talking about the fear that the lights might get shut off.
And the sources really stress the idea of dignity and the support that's provided. Youth workers often provide essentials, food, clothes, tech access, but they do it in a way that protects privacy and agency. Can you give us an example?
Think about a youth center that just has a communal meal every night. It's not a soup kitchen line.
It's just part of the program.
It's just what they do. And the worker makes sure that getting that meal or a voucher for a travel card is woven into the routine. It's part of the relationship, not a transaction where you have to plead for charity.
So the relationship itself becomes the place where you learn about your rights.
Exactly. Your options, how to advocate for yourself, not just how to receive aid.
That distinction is profound.
Okay.
So how does that safety net then transition into contribution number 2, which is informal learning that builds real capabilities?
It shifts from crisis response to skill building. Youth work uses activities, projects to create what we call learning out of everyday experience.
So it's practical.
And immediately applicable. So instead of a formal course on personal finance,
What does that look like in the youth club?
it might be a cooking group. But the learning objective isn't just the recipe. They're learning budgeting, calculating cost per portion, negotiating at the market.
Or, I'm guessing, a digital project isn't just about using software.
Right. It's about critical media literacy. It's dissecting a viral news story about their own neighborhood and asking, who is telling this story and why?
I see. So that's the capability idea. You're turning what feels like limited resources, a kitchen, an opinion, into real choices, confidence, skills, social networks.
Precisely. And for young people who are, quietly disengaged from school, this kind of learning can pull them back in because it feels relevant. It respects what they already know.
Which leads us powerfully to contribution number 3, critical consciousness and social action.
Yeah, this is where it gets really transformative.
This moves beyond just individual problems.
It does. It helps young people move past that internalized blame. It helps them link their personal struggles, the mold in their flat, not having enough food, to bigger structural inequalities.
So it shifts the narrative from I failed to
The system is unjust.
That seems like a massive jump, though. How does a youth worker even start that conversation?
It starts with structured reflection. So if a young person is stressed about their housing, the worker might ask, is anyone else here dealing with similar stuff?
Building solidarity.
Who is responsible for housing in our area? What power do we have if we work together?
And that leads to action.
It can, yeah. Young people researching local food deserts or campaigning for free public transport or even co-designing services with the local council. The key is you're not trying to fix them. You're working with them to challenge the unjust systems.
And finally, number 4, recognizing the young person isn't an island. Youth workers build relationships with whole families, offering early help, advocacy.
And this is where they become sort of system navigators. They're often the only consistent translator between families struggling with poverty and the dense, jargon-filled systems of schools, social care, housing.
So they're ensuring professionals understand the reality of why a kid missed an appointment.
Yes, while also making sure that young person's voice is actually heard in decisions that affect their life. They're constantly interpreting across these boundaries.
Okay, so now that we've got the what, let's get into the how. The informal education pedagogies in practice.
The first, and maybe the most foundational, is voluntary participation and a negotiated agenda.
And this isn't just a small detail, is it? It's a profound pedagogical choice.
Like everything.
Choice and consent are central. They opt in, they co-shape the activities, and crucially, they can walk away.
And that is so vital. It fundamentally rebalances power.
Because when your life is constrained in every other way by poverty.
Exactly. You can't choose where you live, what school you go to, often what you eat. So to have a space of genuine choice that is politically and educationally significant, it's where you learn to exercise power responsibly.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Conversation as curriculum. Tell us more about those daily chats, while shooting baskets or waiting for the bus. How is that a curriculum?
It's not accidental. It's facilitated conversation that explores identity, fairness, money, and justice.
So the skill of the youth worker is crucial.
Absolutely. They aren't just letting people vent. They're using open questions, deep listening, critical reflection to move the conversation from just sharing a story to making meaning from it, and then maybe to action.
So if a young person is complaining about a bad day at school, The worker isn't just saying, oh, that's too bad.
Right. They might ask, what were the rules that made that day bad? Who made those rules? Are they fair?
That little shift turns a complaint into an analysis of power.
Precisely. It's subtle, but that's the core of the teaching method.
And they don't just talk. They do. We see this with the experiential methods, the group work. How do those projects and tasks help them test out roles and build that mutual support?
Well, group work is vital because it builds solidarity. And that's the necessary infrastructure for any kind of social action. A camping trip, a community arts project. These things force you to practice collaboration, conflict resolution, relying on each other. It's practical education in citizenship.
And this whole approach,
Yeah.
this is what defines youth work as a form of social pedagogy, right?
Yes. Social pedagogy is the idea of educating in and with the community. It links care, learning, and social justice all together.
And the youth workers often find themselves operating in what our sources call liminal spaces.
Yeah, those in-between spots.
Can you ground that for us? What's a real-world liminal space?
It's the school corridor just after the bell.
Yeah.
The housing estate stairwell, the corner shop, an anonymous online forum. These are the spaces where formal systems are absent, but the learning needs and the immediate challenges are incredibly high. The youth worker intentionally goes to those borders to deliver education and care right when and where it's needed most.
If we connect all these threads, it becomes so clear that this quiet, persistent work, it's anything but a nice to have.
Absolutely.
Youth work is essential infrastructure in these communities.
So what does this all mean for the future? It means we need sustained investment in relationship-based youth work, especially in the most deprived areas, so workers can stay long enough to build that trust.
And we need truly integrated approaches, where youth work, schools, housing, health, they collaborate as genuinely equal partners.
And stop seeing youth work as just picking up the pieces from other failing systems.
Yeah.
And we also need professional learning that's focused on anti-poverty, anti-oppressive approaches, giving workers the analytical tools they need to do this vital border work.
This deep dive has really highlighted the transformative power of informal education, when it's embedded in trust and centered on young people's rights. So before we wrap, we want to leave you with a provocative thought. Particularly for those of you working in or around these fields. Take a moment and audit your current practice. Where are you already responding to the structural realities of poverty, and not just the symptoms?
And considering the powerful mechanism of informal pedagogy, how might you design activities that both respond to an immediate crisis, like providing food in a dignified way,
Right.
and at the same time, open up a critical collective exploration of why those crises exist in the first place?
It's all about recognizing the incredible resilience of young people and supporting the quiet, persistent labor of the youth workers who intentionally hold open these spaces of genuine possibility, of self-determination in contexts that are so often defined by scarcity.